Welcome to my presentation. My name is Landis Baxter, and today I'm going to be educating you all on classical education and why it better equips students than public school education. Education is the most vital piece to a student's success and their career after graduation. It equips them with self-discipline, accountability, and much more. One of the major problems with public school education is the lack of homework that students are being given. Also, overpopulated classrooms cause lack of concentration and lack of individuality. As you can see here on this graph, classroom population is much smaller in a classical school setting than public school setting, nearly half. I'm going to play this clip. This is a video or audio clip of a teacher at my school, Mr. Nickens, and he's going to be talking for just a second.
In a setting such as this, having 18 students versus 35 students, the student rapport, the relationship is, and most importantly, the classroom discipline is just tremendously different with smaller school.
All right, so as you could hear, Mr. Nickens is highlighting that it's much easier for a teacher to relate to individual students throughout the class period in a smaller school setting. So that's one of the most important things that he was able to highlight for me. Also, it's easier to keep control of a room when there's only 18 people necessarily instead of 35. So that was what he was able to tell me. This is just a picture of an explanation of why this is what's happening in classical education, but not in public school settings. There's no relationship between a teacher and a student. It's just not possible for a teacher to connect with every student in a classroom when there's so many people. This is a graph of comparing ACT scores from a classical school and the rest of the nation in public schools. So as you can see, the blue represents the classical schools, and it's much higher in nearly every single category than in the nation's public schools. Okay, next, since we've talked about the red areas of public schools and why classical schools are much better, I'm going to give you reasons to why classical school is so much better. In a classical school setting, teachers don't give as much busy work and non-stimulating activities that serve no purpose to the advancement of students' minds. Everything in classical school has a purpose. Challenging a student in school will help them later on. You can't be afraid to challenge a student because it's teaching them real world ideas that they can use later on. If you don't challenge somebody, they're not going to be prepared for their life outside of school in the real world. Classical education teaches a student how to think rationally and solve problems while building individual character, confidence, and accountability. This is the definition given by the Association of Classical Christian Schools. In classical education, there are three pillars of school. First, you see the grammar school, which is knowledge. So facts, data, terms, and basic skills are taught, such as being able to remember stuff and learning stuff through song and jingle. I'm sure everybody here remembers learning the President's song or something like that if you were here in elementary school. That's grades pre-K through 5. And the middle school years, as it would be the logic school, is understanding, and it's the how, what, and why of what we learned in grammar school. So you're gonna apply all the stuff that you've learned or in your early years and learn how to use it in real problem solving. Next is the rhetoric school. The rhetoric school is wisdom, which is the proper use of the knowledge and understanding. So it's just kind of building on, it's kind of the last step of what you've learned through your first 8 years of school. So that's your high school 9th through 12th grade years. This is a clip of Mr. Nickens again. It's talking about how the main differences that he sees from, he's taught in both the public school setting and the classical setting, so I'm gonna let him talk.
In a classical school, you are not focused just on a set of data. You're focused on the meaning of the subject, why the subject is important, why the subject is applicable to one's life, and most importantly, the beauty of that subject, why someone should study the subject for the love of learning that subject, in my case, social studies.
So as you heard from Mr. Nickens, what I kind of said earlier is just, he just highlighted on that. Next, I'm going to talk about how teachers, you should grade for accuracy. Don't be afraid to fail a student, because it's only going to help them later on in their school career, or outside of their school career as well. So, you know, you might get an F and you might be a little discouraged, but you know what? You've seen what failure looks like and what happens when you don't give 100% effort. So that's that. This is just another example, picture of, you know, why you need to be prepared for the real world. This is what the real world looks like. You're not just always going to be stuck behind a desk doing paperwork. You gotta talk to real people. So you need to learn this type of stuff. Now that I've given you all the evidence that I've been able to find, I'm going to recap. So the problem that we addressed today was students in the public education curriculum are not being challenged, and classroom sizes and population are too large for a sense of belonging to a student. Our solution is challenging students will only teach them to work better in their adult lives by mapping out their academic journey from the very beginning with the 3 pillars. It gives an attack plan for a student's educational development. So being able to supply a student with what they need to accomplish early on, just as the working world, is going to help them from the start to be able to achieve their goal in the end. This is my tangible object, which I'm going to pass out to the crowd and let you take a look at. You can just pass that around. It's the Introduction to Classical Education, which is a parent's guide for classical education. So, you know, one day, yeah, right. One day you guys might be trying to make a decision of whether to send your child to public school, or do I bite the bullet and pay for classical education? Well, I hope that I've left you enough knowledge today to show you why classical education is worth it. Thank you. Now, I'm going to open it for questions. Does anybody have a question?
No. Actually, I do.
Kaywood, you have a question?
How do you know this when you haven't gone to public school?
Well, I have met enough people at this school now, and I've heard, you know, as Kyne's been to public school, Gabby's been to public school, so Logan's been to public school. So I've seen enough people in my days to realize why classical is better. You know, they didn't learn Latin in elementary school like you do at a classical school. So, you know, you gotta be, that's just how I understand it from personal experience. Anybody else, or is that it? JC?
How has classical education benefited you personally?
Well, you know, I mean, personally, I can remember stuff that I've learned in elementary school, such as the stuff that we learned, and I feel like my phonics and my spelling has helped greatly over the years, stuff that was implemented very early on. I think the grammar school is probably the most important of the 3 pillars, because it teaches you all your foundation, and you can't have a good ending without a great foundation. So, all right, thank you guys for listening, and that's it. Thank you.
What was that for?
Still remember what?
Intro to communications.
Oh, your